Welcome back to Season 5 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hello and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 168, Season 5, Episode 5. Dark Days in Denver adventure continues, and I got to tell you, I've heard a lot of really great feedback on Dark Days in Denver. I had a lot of fun putting this book together, so I'm stoked to hear that, and I really hope you guys enjoy this podcast season. Winter is on the way, and it's time to get all your harvestable goodies stored up. I'm sure you guys have been hard at work. This year is the first year that I have not done a garden, and it feels really, really strange, and we're getting our winter garden in. We were just kind of ransacked by the ground squirrels last year, so we're changing garden sites and, cultivating dirt to help improve California soil, which really, really sucks. We live in a clay zone, so it takes us a while to get that soil ready to plant, and we got a bunch of raised beds and things like that we're redoing. So we're in kind of a restructuring year. So next year I'll be back on the ball. We're getting our winter garden in now. But it feels kind of strange. And we made a lot of dietary changes anyhow because my husband was diagnosed with arthritis. And so we eliminated a lot of the nightshade vegetables, which are, tomatoes, potatoes, things like that. And so we're kind of restructuring our thoughts on our garden, what we're going to be growing and things like that. Usually we do a lot of tomatoes, but now we're trying to kind of steer away from them. Nightshade vegetables, they increase inflammation in the body. So we've been trying to eliminate that. Processed foods, gluten, sugar, those kind of things all do the same thing. So just some of the dietary changes that we've made. And if you're interested in that topic, you're struggling with arthritis, things like that, go ahead and shoot me a message. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about a lot of the changes we've made and how they've really, really helped out. Not only have we lost a lot of weight in the process, which has helped him, not that he was overweight or anything, but just carving off those extra pounds has really helped his hips and the arthritis that he has there. So I don't want to do a whole show on it, but it's really made a big difference. So if you are interested in that type of information, go ahead and give me a shout out, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. You can do that either via my website or head over to Facebook and get a hold of me there. We're also, busy with putting away firewood. That's a big deal for us for the wintertime. We get a lot of heat that way. So firewood and just making sure that everything, the gutters are clean, everything's ready to go for winter. We don't get rain here except in the wintertime. So that's one of the activities that we are, actively engaged in. And I want to encourage you guys to fight the lazy this winter. It's really, really easy to watch out the window at the yucky weather and, just not want to go out and train and stuff. But, if it's not raining, you're not training. And, disasters, scenarios don't always happen in the best of weather. Murphy's Law says that, it's going to throw it at you at the most inopportune time. So it's important to get out and train at those times. Learn how to start a fire when it is wet and yucky and everything's going on. Learn how to get your shelter up when the weather's nasty so that, if you needed to, you can utilize those things. So my big message is fight the lazy, get out there, learn some martial arts, and you can always practice those forms and those techniques indoors, and it doesn't take much space. I read a book about solo training, and this guy had like a 1-bedroom apartment. He used to kick out his window just so that he could practice his kicking and stuff. So there's ways and means to make things happen no matter where you are. So please fight the lazy this winter. Keep yourselves active. Keep yourself engaged so that your body is prepared for whatever you need it to do. I have also been actively trying to eliminate Google from my business platforms. It's a lot easier said than done. My emails are still based there and things like that. But I am trying to get rid of my Google blog and stuff like that and moving it all over to my actual website. So if you want any of my information, that's where you need to go, www.author sarafhathaway.com. And I'm getting all the podcast episodes over there, getting all my blogs over there because I'm trying to eliminate Google. Google has been extremely disappointing to me. Just the direction that the company is taking and the manipulation that they are actively engaged in. And so I listen to Glenn Beck a lot, and I encourage you to go out and listen to his episode that was done today when I'm recording on August 8th of 2018. So go listen to the Glenn Beck podcast from 10/8 of 18. And it's called Things Are Not As They Appear, and it features Dr. Robert Epstein. And you're going to have your mind blown by the information that this guy has. He's actually a Hillary Clinton supporter, and he started looking into what kind of effect that the Google search engines and the Google company has on people as far as their voting preferences, buying preferences, things like this. It is scary. And he actually did a documentary. It's called thecreepyline.com. So you can go directly to thecreepyline.com and check out this information. You will never, you won't want your Android phone anymore, and you will not want to be a part of the Google platform. And if you haven't heard about Google and what they're working hand in hand with the Chinese government to make sure that they can use propagandized information only on their search engines and things like this, super scary stuff. It makes me want to just go get a cabin in the woods and stay out of it, because you think you're a free person, you think your thoughts are your own, and you don't even realize the amount of manipulation that is happening right now. So if you're, I just encourage everybody, you listen to podcasts, head on over, check out the Glenn Beck podcast from 10/8 of 2018. It is scary stuff. And I really encourage you to check out Dr. Robert Epstein, check out his work and what he's doing as far as the knowledge that he's trying to share with us about these manipulation activities, because it's crazy stuff. And Google's everywhere, and they're just proliferating the world right now. And so that's a big reason why I've been trying to pull off of there. I am still using YouTube because, what else do you do? Even Vimeo is owned by Google, so it's not really a viable secondary option. I try to, I'm trying to minimize my use of Google as much as possible, but it's really, really challenging because they're kind of everywhere, have their fingers everywhere, and if you want to do business online, then you've got to rely on Google, and it's a mess. But definitely head on over there and check it out. It's creepy stuff, and it's called thecreepyline.com. And then Dr. Robert Epstein appears on the Glenn Beck episode for the 10/8 of 2018. And you gotta listen. If you just don't know what I'm talking about at all, you're like, Sarah, what are you talking about? This is crazy stuff. Why are you even wasting time on your podcast about this? Head on over there and check it out, because I wouldn't waste time on my podcast unless I felt it was really, really worth sharing the knowledge out there. Okay, I want to thank all of my Patreon members. Guys, your support is just incredible, and it's what keeps this show going. It pays for the show, and I need more of your support right now. It's just, to keep this show going is a lot of work and a lot of forward effort, and I want to bring you more and more content all the time, and it just takes a lot of time. So if you head on over to patreon.com/The Changing Earth, or patreon.com/Changing Earth, you're going to find my stuff. And the first 5 new subscribers that I get over there, I'm going to go ahead and give you a free Dark Days of Denver audiobook. So as soon as you hear this, get on over there and get signed up. www.patreon.com/Changing Earth. Get signed up to Patreon. For $3 a month, it makes a big difference to me, and you can support the show and keep providing this content so we can get it out there to the world and get everybody prepared, so we have all these prepared communities and people not going crazy when disaster hits. So it's really important, and I really appreciate everybody who's already signed up. Your support and your love and encouragement just is everything, and it's what's keeping this show going for real. So last week on the Dark Days of Denver Adventure, the family's kind of settling into this new camp environment. I really wanted to paint a lot of the community and what's happening with the refugees and how people are surviving at this point. This week, Dexter and Johnny, they go out on patrol and an incident happened. And I am super duper excited because this week I have Doug Huffman on my show. And Doug made a big difference in my life when I wanted to learn a lot of survival information. He was a personal mentor of mine. I got to spend a lot of time with him doing campouts, and he, just a few hours with Doug, and he just fills your minds up with tons of great info. So I'm super honored to have him on the show today. And he is discussing how we can avoid these wild animal attacks and, how we can handle them and prevent them from happening in the first place. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into Chapter 5 of Dark Days in Denver. Chapter 5. Dexter headed toward the gate with Trucker. He and Johnny were assigned to guard duty. Given their sniping expertise, they were put in an overwatch position where they would observe the new arrivals entering the gate. They waded through the throng of people. The refugees were directed to a tent where they could rest and eat. They would continue their journey north in the morning. There were too many people on the move to allow them to linger. Reaching the gate, Dexter saw Megan there checking in refugees. "She's so easy to talk to," he mused, watching her. "I'd much rather be spending the day with her than you two," Dexter told Trucker and Johnny. Trucker looked at him sideways and whined. "With Megan?" Johnny asked curiously, following his gaze. "Yeah, we had such a good time in the city last night. I think I'm beginning to love that girl," Dexter admitted as they turned towards the tall tower. "She's like your sister, right?" Johnny asked. "Or your aunt because your grandparents adopted her?" "Exactly, adopted. We're not blood, and I think she's hot," Dexter defended, climbing the stairs to the box that sat above the crowd. The two young men took their position in the small sitting area. They took turns alternating between the spotting scope and the rifle for the shooter. Scanning the people below, Dexter examined their faces. Everyone displaced, just trying to survive. He pondered their stories and struggles as he watched them. He saw Megan talking with the woman clutching tightly to two children. "You think he's still alive?" Johnny asked out of the blue. "Your dad?" Dexter asked for clarification. "Yes, my dad," Johnny replied, irritated. "No news may be good news," Dexter replied. "Lieutenant Colonel Burgess didn't say anything." "All we gotta do is cross the Ogallala Lake and we're in Kansas," Johnny told him. "I've heard the feds are building a floating city out there, Johnny," Dexter countered. "The longer we wait, the less chance we'll have," Johnny urged him. "I don't know, Johnny. We need more intelligence before we can go," Dexter declared. "We'll wait to find out what Cassidy's scouting party has to say when they get back." "But they're not going to be back for 2 weeks," Johnny protested, thinking over the decision. "But you're probably right. We need the info." The morning continued in much the same fashion. Wait 15 minutes and then switch position. The guys grabbed lunch and returned to their post to continue the same pattern into the afternoon. "My brother must be done with morning training. He's down there with his drawings," Dexter commented. "He's been quiet lately," Johnny noted. "Hey, Dex, check out the dude at 2 o'clock. "All of Daniel's friends got left behind again," Dexter explained, changing his line of sight. "You mean the guy in the trench coat in the middle of the day?" "Gate, this is Overwatch," Johnny said into his radio. "Go ahead, Overwatch," the voice on the radio answered. "We have a potential hostile. You're 12 o'clock, Caucasian man in a black trench," Johnny told the radio. Dexter continued watching the man as the soldiers closed around him. The men talked for a while, and Dexter watched as the man presented his weapon to the soldiers. He knew the soldier would give the gun back once he was on the other side, but Dexter was relieved that the situation went well. He wanted a break from fighting, some kind of distraction. His mind wandered back to his night with Megan. They'd talked about everything. Surveying the crowd again, he watched Daniel pausing the people and producing a caricature of the individual. They would pose with one another and smile, while Daniel rapidly worked his charcoal stick across the paper. When he was done, the refugees delighted in his work, laughing at the cartoon images. Dexter was soaking in the moment, watching his brother smiling widely. An older man approached Daniel, and Dexter saw Daniel showing his drawings to the man. The old man was studying each one carefully. "Dexter, it's my turn to use the scope," Johnny told him. "What have you been looking at anyway?" Johnny took the spotting scope as Dexter seated himself comfortably with the rifle. "Still looking at your bro?" Johnny asked. "It's nice to see him smile," Dexter commented. "You're such a hopeless romantic," Johnny teased him. "Who's that guy with him?" "I don't know, dude. But Daniel could probably take that guy no problem," Dexter boasted proudly as he scanned the horizon. "Man, those homes look nice and cozy. Imagine settling down there with a little family." "Dex, we aren't supposed to be watching the homesteads," Johnny told him. "Johnny, look out over there," Dexter directed urgently. "Where?" Johnny wondered, curiously scanning the homesteads with the spotting scope. "The edge of the tree line, out at the horizon. Is that a coyote?" Dexter wondered. "It wouldn't be out in the middle of the day," Johnny commented, rapidly scanning the edge of the forest. "It is, dude," Dexter said, looking through the scope. "It is," Johnny agreed. "What's it looking at?" he wondered, looking through the scope and following the animal's gaze. "It's watching those kids in the sandbox. Where's their mom?" he wondered, assessing the scene through the scope. "She's over there, hanging clothes on the line." "It's moving," Dexter started to say, but no sooner had he said it when the animal suddenly bolted from its hiding spot at the edge of the woods. Dexter fired a shot at the animal, drawing the attention of the people below him. The coyote was committed and didn't flinch at the far-off sound. It grabbed the small boy by the leg and was pulling him back towards the woods as the child frantically struggled. "It's a long shot," Dexter commented, waiting for Johnny to give him directions. 862 yards, shoot," Johnny urged him, watching the animal pull backwards with the child. Dexter fired, barely missing the animal. 5 meters left, Johnny directed, as Dexter loaded another round and fired immediately. The coyote fell dead as the boy's mother ran forward to retrieve him. She looked in the direction of the tower before turning and running towards her home, cradling her child. "Dude, that was an awesome shot," Johnny praised him. "Yeah, but we weren't supposed to look over there, let alone shoot over there," Dexter worried. "You saved that kid, Dex," Johnny said. "Things don't always work out like you think they should, Johnny," Dex said. "Or you're just being a worrywart," Johnny told him, continuing his surveillance of the crowd. "Status report, Corporal Johnson," the radio sounded. Dexter looked up from the rifle. "Shots were fired at a coyote attacking a child on the adjoining homesteader property," Johnny replied. "Has the animal been dispatched?" the voice on the radio questioned. "Yes, sir," Johnny replied. "Hold your position and continue surveillance, Corporal," the voice directed. "See, bro, nothing to worry about," Johnny said. The two young men finished their shift in a couple of hours and headed back towards the gate to be relieved for the night. "Corporal, how the heck have you been?" A Staff Sergeant Dexter didn't know greeted Johnny warmly, but he was looking tentatively at Trucker. "Sir, I've been better," Johnny acknowledged, saluting the man. "How has life been treating you, Staff Sergeant Merkley?" "Busy," he commented. "I understand we had a shooting incident today. Shots fired into a homestead?" "Yes, sir. Private Case took the shot to eliminate a hostile animal on the property, sir," Johnny replied. "Lieutenant Colonel Jackson would like to see the two of you in his office immediately," Staff Sergeant Merkley directed. "Yes, sir," they replied. As they turned away, Dexter rolled his eyes. "Here we go." "I don't know what to tell you," Johnny admitted. Megan was getting off her shift as well and ran to catch up with them. "I heard the shots this afternoon. What happened?" she wondered, pushing her blonde, wavy hair out of her face. "A coyote attacked a homesteader's kid," Dexter said. "Did you kill it?" she asked. "Of course I did," Dexter admitted. "Now I have to go explain it to Lieutenant Colonel Jackson." "Do you want me to wait for you to go to dinner?" she wondered. "No, go with my grandma and grandpa. I'll just grab some chow with Johnny when we're done. I don't know how long this will take," Dexter admitted, touching her hand for a moment before she turned to go. "Don't worry, everything will be fine," she told him. "We'll catch up later." "See you then," he said longingly. "Bye, Johnny. See you guys later," she said, melting into the throng of people. Dexter stood quietly watching her go. "Dude, Dexter, snap out of it, man," Johnny said, clapping his hands in front of Dexter's face. "You gotta be on your game to meet Lieutenant Colonel Jackson." "I know, Johnny, I am," Dexter snapped at him. The two young men entered the training facility with Trucker in tow. They saluted superior officers as they made their way to the lieutenant colonel's office. They waited outside the office until the door finally opened and Lieutenant Colonel Jackson directed them to enter. Dexter noticed another dark-haired man standing to the side of the desk as he followed Johnny into the room with Trucker. "Corporal Johnson and Private Case," he said, looking at the files on his desk. His square head had eyes that could burn through their target. "But that's not who you boys really are, is it?" "No, sir," Johnny replied. "I recognize you," the lieutenant colonel commented, running his fingers through his short brown hair. "You're General McClintock's boy, aren't you?" "Yes, sir," Johnny replied again. "First of all, let me tell you how sorry I am to hear about your father," he began. Standing from his desk, he came over and shook Johnny's hand. He stood taller and his large frame was intimidating. "Thank you, sir," Johnny replied. "But we still have a job to do here, don't we, Corporal?" he asked. "Yes, sir, we do," Johnny replied. "Your team fired shots today," he stated as a question. "Yes, sir. Private Case spotted a hostile animal, and for the sake of the child, he decided to discharge his weapon," Johnny explained. "Private Case, you fired the shots?" Jackson asked. "Yes, sir," Dexter replied. "You have a closed file," he commented, as if to himself, as he shifted his body to stand in front of Dexter. "Were you authorized to shoot into a homestead property, son?" "No, sir, I was not," Dexter answered. "Did you discharge your weapon before or after the animal attacked the child?" Jackson wondered. "Sir, I saw the animal leave the wood line headed for the child. I took one shot then, but it was long, about 875 yards. I missed, and the animal took the child. I fired another shot and missed, received corrections from my spotter, and took the kill shot," Dexter explained. "Even though it was against orders, you didn't hesitate to fire?" Jackson questioned. "No, sir," Dexter replied. Jackson went around and sat back down at his desk. "What would you do if you were in my shoes, son?" Jackson asked, to Dexter's surprise. "Sir, I would understand that the life of a child was at risk and offer the private a steak dinner with mashed potatoes and gravy," Dexter replied straightforwardly. The man standing next to the desk smiled, but Jackson looked blankly at Dexter. "Son, I don't know what I can do about the steak, but I couldn't agree more," he replied with the same blank look. Dexter almost thought he had misheard the words. "We don't only need soldiers that can follow orders. We need men who can think as well. Let me introduce you to Mr. James Creed. His father is Lars Creed, the owner of the 10,000 acres that make up the homesteader's compound. His son, Frederick, is the boy whose life you saved today," Jackson explained. The man stepped forward. Dexter thought maybe he was Latino, but when he spoke, there was no sign of an accent. "Very nice to meet you, Private Case," the man said, extending his hand. Dexter shook it. "Thank you for taking the shot. I'm in your debt," he told Dexter, looking into his eyes. Dexter knew this man was sincere, but there was something in his eyes that concerned him. This man was not one to be trifled with, and Dexter could feel it. "You're welcome, sir. I grew up watching out for my little brother. I wouldn't have let anything happen to your son if I could help it," Dexter told him. "It's nice to know you are up there, Private," Mr. Creed replied. "You two are dismissed. Go get some chow," Jackson told them. Johnny and Dex left with Trucker into the hallway. Johnny smiled at Dexter, but they stayed quiet until they were outside the building. "See, dude, I told you," Johnny elated, smiling widely at him. "Sometimes it pays to do the right thing." "Private Case," Mr. Creed yelled, coming out the door. "I'm glad I caught you." He jogged up to them. "I may be able to help you out with that steak. And you too, Corporal." "Thanks, sir. I appreciate that, but I should really go check in with my parents," Dexter replied humbly. "Nonsense. A man of your age should be free to decide where he's going to eat, and I'd be offended if you turned down my hospitality to go eat in the mess," James declared. Dexter acquiesced and followed James to his home with Johnny and Trucker. Things work out better than Dexter expected for doing the right thing and dispatching this hungry coyote. So he wasn't supposed to fire the shots over there, but he made the choice to do it anyway. He's all worried, because, in his experience, things don't always work out the way you think they should. And on this particular incident, it does. So as I mentioned in the intro, I am super duper honored today to have Doug Huffman on the show. Doug made a big difference in my life when I was really, really hungry for, just learning more and more. Well, I'm always hungry for learning more and more, but, Doug was there and he taught me a ton. So people often ask Doug where he learned to master so many different skills. Well, his father was an avid backpacker and an outdoor enthusiast. His family grew up hiking, backpacking, and camping from California to Missouri. At the age of 17, he started his first of many multi-week solo backpacking trips through the deserts, mountains, and Indian reservations of Arizona. Since that time, he has worked or instructed with many organizations, including Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Homeland Security, Search and Rescue, FBI special agents, and sheriff's departments. He has also guided professionally from the Grand Canyon's Colorado River to Oregon's Rogue River and many points throughout the Sierras. The Sierra School of Survival and/or Doug Huffman has been featured in Sunset Magazine, the Fish Sniffer Magazine, the Sac Bee, Western Outdoors News, the Folsom Telegraph, Prime Ticket Sports Network, Point Counterpoint, Good Day Sacramento, Capital Public Radio, ABC, NBC, CBS, and many local newscasts. The last several years, Doug has been training military, law enforcement, and civilians in wilderness urban survival, tracking, counter-tracking, escape and evasion, close quarters combat, pointman, scout recon, team movements, and communications. He also conducts survival seminars for REI in Northern California and Nevada. In 2009, Sierra Survival was featured live over 10 times on local and national television stations. Please realize that at Sierra School of Survival, his office is the outdoors. Because he only makes it into the office a few times a week, he cannot respond to emails and phone calls within the same time frame as most businesses that you might deal with. He realizes that this may appear unprofessional to those who live and work daily in the concrete jungle, and he appreciates your understanding as he conducts his business in the wilderness beyond the range of our cell phone. He wants to thank you for your interest in Sierra School of Survival, and he looks forward to training with you or your group in the near future. And he is still open to those types of events. So if you get a hold of Doug and you have a group and you want to have Doug come out and train your group, I highly recommend it. Actually, if you end up doing that, please let me know because I would love to be a part of that group. I've tried to get him down a few times, and all my groups, we have a lot of kids and things like that. So it's hard for us to get the time to have him here where we can truly, truly soak up his knowledge. And man, I just can't tell you how much training with Doug is just absolutely priceless. I mean, every hour that I get to spend with him, I just soak up so much information as we did with this interview. If you want to get a hold of Doug, you can head on over to www.sierrasurvival.com. That's www.sierrasurvival.com. He has a ton of information that is available in video instruction. So great videos. I've been through a lot of them myself. I have a whole notebook on, just notes that I take off of his videos and great stuff. So I highly recommend that you get in touch with Doug. It's a little bit more challenging nowadays because he is out there just living his dream and, is kind of pulled out a little bit. But every opportunity that I get to pick his brain, I am all over it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Doug to the show. Today, I am super honored to have one of my past mentors on the show, Doug Huffman. Doug, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join me on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here, Sarah.
Well, I've really valued learning from you in the past. I just learned a ton of information in a very short period of time. I feel like I didn't get enough. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners and let them know who you are.
Well, okay. My name is Doug Huffman, and I ran Sierra School of Survival for, 6 or 7 years. There in Placerville, California, and Sara was part of our survival club, which we met once a month. And I have kind of an extensive background in law enforcement, special forces, and different groups of just training, tracking, and survival, and urban survival, etc. So that's about it for me.
Perfect. Yeah, it was a really cool class that you had put together, and I really enjoyed our time. So today, now you're living up in Alaska. You've fled California, if I can say that on the air. You have fled. You're no longer behind the Iron Curtain. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how we can be more aware to prevent wild animal attacks and what we can do if we confront certain animals. So let's just kind of start there. If you live in the country or you're an avid hiker, you know, you spend a lot of time out in the wilderness, what are some kind of steps we can do to just hedge against these attacks to begin with?
Well, I think the biggest thing, you know, in the rural, living in the country areas, is it's around your house, which is common sense, anyways, just for fire. You know, for fire hazards, you need that 100-foot barrier. You know, any of these predators, they don't want to be exposed. They want to be hidden behind brush and make their attack from a hidden area. So that would be job one. You know, anytime you're outdoors, you know, you got to make noise. Most problems that I see, anyways, over the last 30, 40 years are just because, you know, you startle an animal because you're being quiet. And that usually doesn't end well for the human.
Yeah, no stealth walking out there.
No, none of that stealth walking practice for tracking. That doesn't work. As far as trying to make the predators aware. Obviously, if you're hunting, then that's a different issue.
Right.
But you got to be still, you know, aware of your surroundings when you're out hunting. And you, at least for us here in Alaska, you have to hunt in pairs, 2 or 4 at a time. We're constantly, you know, a gunfire out here in Alaska is a dinner bell to a brown bear and a grizzly.
Oh,
that just means they come running to gunfire.
Wow. We've had a little brown bear around the house. Oh, he's about the size of the quad. And yeah, I've just been putting up all kinds of boards with nails backwards around the chicken coops and stuff, so that if he puts his hands up there, he gets a little bit of a spike in his hands. And, you know, I really don't want to have to take the gun to him, but it's getting to that point. I saw him just up on the ridge the other day and fired the shotgun right next to him. You know, I'm not trying to kill him or anything. I just want to spook him and get him the heck out of here. But he tore open a neighbor's like wall of their garage and things like that. So I'm like, you know, I'm not really comfortable with having you here. You need to move on. So
yeah, well, they must have had some food. They're, you know, the bears are pretty much just gluttonous animals. You know, they smell something, they're going to go through a car. People don't realize it. I mean, they can just rip a car wide open, you know, pretty quick and like go through that garage. But, you know, people store long-term food and things inside the garage, and, you know, a bear smells that. And was this an incident that just happened in the fall?
Yeah. Yep.
Just now?
That
I mean,
one happened within the last month. And then he stole a bag of feed out of our shed and stuff. We don't close the door, so, you know, he can have at it.
Yeah, this October is going to be, you're going to see those instances all over America. They've got to be fattening up, so they become a little bit more aggressive to meet their food needs for the winter.
Fair enough. Yeah. And we had so many fires, they got all pushed around and all out of their element. So,
well, that would have been everybody, right? Bears, mountain lions, coyotes in your area.
Yep. Yeah. And the areas that didn't get burned, we got the influx of the animals to our areas. So, of course, that's just great, you know.
you got water, green grass, magnet.
Exactly. So, one of my buddies, James, he always says, you know, like put a bell on your walking stick, take your walking stick and then like put a bell on it. And that way, at least you're jingle jangling as you go. And that helps to, you know, alert them to your surroundings, you know, that you're coming through kind of situation. So.
Yeah, a couple of bells are nice as long as you can take the jingle, jingle, jingle all the time. You know, some people that drives them crazy. You know, I like to sing and just talk and make noise. You know, the other big issue about, you know, any type of, you know, trail activity are dogs. You know, we've lost 4 dogs here in Juneau this summer alone from 2 wolf attacks and 2 bear attacks. So those 4 dogs were munched. But, you know, those dogs were 75 to 100 yards ahead of the owner, and they ran, you know, just straight into an unwary predator, and they got attacked and eaten. So it wasn't the wolf's fault or the bear's fault, in my opinion. You know, that's the owner's fault of letting these dogs off leash in a wilderness trail system. Yep. So I think, you know, my Queensland healers, they're, you know, they stay behind me. When I'm on wild trails, my dog stays behind me. And because I don't want those type of incidents, and especially I don't want, my little blue heeler, bringing a bear back at 30 miles an hour. And that's pretty common. Also, they run up the trail and they go, "Oh my gosh!" And then all of a sudden they're coming right back to you and bringing a bear with them.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's excellent. All right. So I've got a little bit more work to do. My dogs stay, pretty close to my side, but they will go up, especially my new dog. I got a new lab last year, and I'm still working with her. And so, yeah, keeping them behind you instead of even letting them out in front of you at all. That's a great idea. I got a little bit more work to do then.
yeah,
And anyway, I just keep them on leash when we're in those situations so that they're not tempted. Around the house, they will.
yeah,
They chase the bear, off property and stuff, but that's kind of what they're there for. So I guess I could
sure.
take that loss if I needed to, right? So
Yeah, and one of the things I had a depredation permit for the state of Arizona, so I solved problems, animal problems there for when I was a younger man. And, one of the biggest things I saw there was out in rural areas was salt blocks. People want to put a salt block out there because they want to attract the deer and the elk, and they want to look at that outside their back door. But the reality is, that you're also attracting all predators. The predators like to lick that salt also. And
mhm.
so they're bringing that right in the backyard, close to the Arcadia door or windows, and then you add kids to the element. And I think if you got kids, I think there needs to be a safe fenced area. It needs to be cleared, and it needs to be a nice, 6 foot at minimum chain link fence, something like that. That the kids need to be in a secured area, so one of these predators can't bolt out and grab them and take them. So, but
Yeah,
it really doesn't happen all that often. I don't know whether you looked that up or not, but I don't think there's more than maybe 2 people have been munched by a coyote, and uh, maybe two wolf attacks on people.
we are always
Go ahead.
fearful because we live on the big mountain, and the mountain lions come down from the top. They love the top of our mountain. And so, having our son out in the yard, that could be like the blink of an eye, right? As the mountain lion
Sure.
crosses, grab your kid and takes off. So we did the same thing. We had his play set up and everything up on the deck, fenced in, and he doesn't go off that, unless we're with him. Now that he's getting older,
Right.
it's better. But when he was little, it was like, no, we're just not comfortable with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you're talking about trails and things, or just being outside in those rural areas, being in groups of 4 or more is just a magic combination. There's been almost no recording of wild animal attacks with groups of 4 or more.
Hmm.
Um, you had a lady who was attacked by a mountain lion about 20 years ago,
Yep.
there in the right down the street from where you live. And but again, a single jogger, out on a trail,
With
and
headphones on.
something, yeah, with headphones on. It's
Mhm.
just like, well, you've been through a lot of my urban survival classes. You can't have headphones when you're in a city environment. You can't have them when you're out on a trail. You have to have your senses about you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. 4 or more is also good for like the city as well. When I was in Mexico with my husband, we were like, okay, we need to find another couple that we can go into town with, so it's not just us.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, you really got to pick and choose where you're going in Mexico now. So,
Right? Yeah, I don't
yeah,
go there anymore. I'm good.
yeah,
So, okay, so
yeah.
as far as animals, what about snakes? So a lot of us have snakes around the country. Probably not so much in Alaska, huh? You got water
No
moccasins up
snakes,
there?
no snakes here.
Okay, no
There's
snakes.
there's there's no snakes.
There's a bonus. But I know you know about snakes from living down here. So what, you come up on a rattler, he's already there. What's your word of advice for everybody?
Well, if you're out hiking, I don't think you should ever be hiking without trekking poles or a walking staff. I'm a walking staff guy, because I use the pole for many different things. And that pole goes first. It goes over the log, because any of the snakes are going to be on the side, like under a bush, a rock. So we have to watch where our feet and our hands are going, and it's those blind spots, where the snakes are. And
Hmm.
that's usually what happens. Once again, we've surprised them. We've come into their area. They're nice and comfortable, and here we come charging through. And the snake, really, from the statistics I've seen, the snakes can't really feel the impact of your foot until you're a minimum of 15 feet away. So,
Okay.
when you're walking at 15 feet, that's only 5 steps and boom, you're on them. So they really don't have a chance to escape and get away from you. But that's why I keep that staff there. And we actually did a study at Arizona State with different colors on walking sticks.
Hmm.
And if you painted the bottom of your walking stick a bright red, those snakes, the rattlesnakes, they hit that stick 2 out of 3 times. They could feel like that red, that heat color coming off of that walking stick.
Crazy.
And it's amazing how they would strike that. But, when I was guiding pig hunts down in Arizona on a lot of those lava areas with that tall 2 foot dry grass, I'd get hit probably anywhere from 15. My highest was 27 strikes in one day on my lower legs. Of
Whoa.
course, I had the big snake gators, and I would clear in the path for the hunters behind me.
Oh my.
And yeah, talking about a nervous wreck. You know, um, yeah, and back then we just had those big leather chaps, going up to mid thigh, and you get hit 27 times in a day, man, and you're just like you get pretty attuned to the fact that you're going to get hit. So, but again, I'm in their area and I can't see them, with those 2 foot high grasses. Don't go into high brushy areas. You got to be able to see where you're stepping and don't climb up cliffs where you can't see your hands.
Hmm.
Same thing. So,
Yeah, I almost stepped on 2 this summer, so it was not a good year for me. And
yeah.
we've been playing a lot of airsoft, and I was squatted down by one log, and I'm like, why is there a hose running over here? There's no hoses over here. I look in the log, and it's a rattlesnake sitting right in front of me. I'm like, okay, you win. Bye bye. Yeah, that one I could.
I don't know if you were. Yeah, I don't know if you were in any of the classes when we ran across them, but I have 2 policies. One is, if they rattle and I take my stick and I slowly move them off the trail so it doesn't endanger the class I'm teaching. But if they strike me, I eat it. So I kill it and I eat it.
Yeah.
That's my 2 rules.
Well, I've never eaten
Yeah.
snake with you before, so we must not have ran into
Okay.
any. Yeah, I'm
All right.
prone to have them come out at the wrong time, though. Okay, so what do we do about coyotes or smaller animals? So these are smaller animals, not as big of a threat. However, if you were Joe Schmo out on the trail and you weren't prepared and everything, and here's a coyote, who's acting aggressive, what are you going to do with this animal?
Well, I think, understanding the coyote to begin with, that, they're really not much of a danger for adult human being.
Hmm.
We have fears that are just built into us as humans. Of, oh my gosh, it's a coyote, and the howling at night and all that. But there's really not that much to fear from coyotes. I always tell people that there's only going to be 2 things left when man dies off of this earth, and that's coyotes and cockroaches.
Fair
They're
enough.
such they're yeah they're such an amazing animal that they adapt, and that's what's so interesting about the coyote. But I would certainly wave arm, make noise. I think where you are, you should be carrying the bear mace.
Mhm.
I just, and that's not only for wild or for dogs, it's for coyotes, it's bears, it's mountain lion, and the worst thing out there, the 2-legged predator, man himself,
Fair.
out on trails.
Yeah, we've had
So,
some of
but
those
yeah,
around here lately.
yeah, but yeah, for coyotes, just make a noise. They'll run. Like I said, from what I know, there's only been 2 deaths in the history of America from a coyote,
Hmm.
but they are opportunists. And if you did have a small child, they are capable of dragging a small child away for sure.
Yeah, and the city people with their dogs and the sweaters, those little dogs are just lunch.
Yeah, yeah. There's hundreds of that happen, nationwide. Just literally hundreds of domestic animals are just, taken.
Right.
Definitely, they're morsels.
Yeah, I think
So,
they like the
here.
taste of the sweater too. It's like having a hot dog bun.
Well, it's fiber, By the time they've eaten the sweater with the little dog, it kind of helps flush their system.
Totally. Okay, so let's get into your bear. And you are up with those grizzlies, and those are big, mean, scary guys.
Yeah, well, I've had an interesting 3 years, when I took off on that sailboat, and I've lived remotely for 3 years. And I lived on a Chichikov Island, which is out on the Pacific coast of southeast Alaska, and it has the highest bear count in the world. And so there's 3 brown bears per square mile. And it might be interesting to note the difference between a brown and a grizzly is that the Kodiak grizzly, which everybody kind of thinks about, that's the largest bear in the world. Well, then there's just grizzly bears, and then there's brown bears. Well, the brown bears are primarily, they're the largest bear of massive population next to Kodiak Island. And a brown bear lives on islands, and they live on right next to the coast because they eat salmon and clams, and they've got all this incredible fat and protein going into their body. They are big, bad boys. They're bigger than the average grizzly bear.
Is that the island that has the spirit bears too, the white ones?
Well, I've never seen one. People talk about them.
Okay.
There is a spirit bear out there that supposedly they see around Sitka and in some other small areas.
Okay.
But I've never had a bad incident yet. You got to realize that 3 brown bears per square mile. They're like rats. Okay, they're everywhere. And so when you do shoot, we've had that several times, them show up, and so we do have to chase them off. And they're constantly, you've got the junkyard bear, which if you're living in a village, that you have 2 or 3 brown bears that they just live there. And that's their job, is to come through and just, take trash out of the village. So, but I just find that, most of the incidents are people that just walk right out of their cabin and didn't make any noise, and they just walk right into a brown bear, and they usually just get cuffed and knocked down, and the brown bear runs away. So, but I think that, you got to be careful with those cubs. If they've got a cub, you're going to have a big problem. And, making noise, even with the dog out walking, again, I haven't had any incidents because I'm always making noise. I've been shadowed twice in the last 3 years, and that is definitely a predator bear.
That's spooky.
Yeah, they followed me for a good half a mile in and out, and those are young male bears, and they're just not quite sure of how to take this attack to the next level, but they're shadowing you in and out. They're going back and forth. They're pretty nervous about things, and usually a couple shots handles that. And but I haven't had to mace any brown bears. I've maced 3 black bears. Black bears just seem to be a little bit more moody. And remember now that black bears don't live in brown bear environments. Brown bears are 50% to twice the size of a black bear. They run a black bear to the ground, they kill it, and they eat it. So the brown bears are just fascinating. They're just huge. So if you think about the size of a piece of plywood, a 4x8 sheet of plywood,
right,
and then just kind of just stand that, lay it down horizontally, and you're looking at that surface, draw a bear. That's the average bear.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. He fills the 4x8 sheet of plywood. Now, if you had a record bear, that would be a 6 foot by 12 foot piece of plywood. And that's a record size bear. So that's freight train, coming at you at 35 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm like a tiny little tick to them. There's like nothing. They're like, yeah, you come up
last year. Yeah. Well, last year, down on Chichikov, we had, in October here in Alaska, October is what we call Mall Month for maulings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply because the bears are becoming more aggressive on, trying to fatten up. Now we put hunters out there in the woods that, the brown bear have come to realize that a gunshot means a dead deer. So you can almost count, 1 out of 4 shots, during a hunting trip, you're probably going to have company. And at least out on Chichikov Island, I'm not talking about, some of the other more remote areas with smaller populations, but because we had so many bears out there, it's a constant threat. And you have to position yourself, after you've shot your deer, you got to position yourself to see the wood line, the timber line, because they're going to come right out of the timber line to take your deer, and they can get really aggressive about it.
Yeah. What are you packing to keep them away? Just bear spray and then firearm backup? Yeah.
The bear spray is the primary weapon, and it's fascinating. I read all these books here on Alaska, 3 or 4 years ago, and of 500 bear attacks in the last 100 years in Alaska, and they all had 11 of the same traits. After they hunted, they left their firearm 20 feet away, and they didn't have a tertiary weapon or a second weapon on them. They were hunting alone. So all of these mistakes that we talked about, they were in a brushy area and they couldn't see, and the bear was just waiting there because it was a predator bear. So don't go into brushy areas for anything, whether it's mountain lion, coyote, bear. Don't go into an area that you can't see. Walk around. And the same thing applies into an urban environment. You wouldn't go walking down a dark alley, in the middle of Oakland. Okay.
Right.
It's just, that would be stupid. And we call that natural selection. You remember how big I am on that law.
Yep.
Stupid people that do stupid things kind of deserve to die. So.
Yep. What amazed me, I was down at Folsom Zoo, and they have the bear enclosures out there now. And one of the black bears was like 35 feet up in this tree. And I'm like, if you were out in the woods walking along and that bear is that high up in the tree, I mean, if you're not really on your game and aware of your environment, you'd never know that animal was up there. You could walk right underneath and never even think twice.
Sure. Well, what they did up here was that they started planting mountain ash, and mountain ash has this beautiful red berry. And so about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they have an arboretum outside of Juneau. I think it's on about mile 36 or something. And so I was going through the arboretum with a plant specialist, learning all the different plants that they have up here versus, all the several hundred different plants that I teach in the lower 48. And I'm looking at this tree, and this tree is just mangled up on the top. It looks like the top of the tree was hit by a weed eater, like you said, 30, 35 feet off the ground. And all of a sudden the branches start moving. And I look up there, and there's a black bear up there, and she's got, her 2 back feet around a branch and 1 paw hanging on. And then she's reaching out, and she's literally stripping the top of all of this tree of all of the berries.
Right.
And so, if you weren't aware, and, that was non-threatening, they're eating berries, so, but as soon as I saw that, I was staring at that, and the lady at the arboretum started wondering why I was looking up there, and so she came out to see if there was a bear up there, and of course there was, and so she immediately started screaming and yelling, and she put up the, undulators, which is like basically a tall orange cone. And they're going to close the arboretum. Oh my gosh, there's a bear there. We're all going to die. And I didn't care too much for her attitude. So, you got to be aware.
With the wildfires, we've also had the wildlife moving into, the urban areas as well. And that's, as soon as a mountain lion spotted, well, we got to close down, half of the city because we saw a mountain lion. And, we have mountain lions up here all the time, like walking down my driveway, and I call fishing game. One chased Fletcher one time on the quad, which was extremely unbelievable. He had a white t-shirt on, and he was up on a ridge, and the mountain lion came from the lower ridge. So I don't know if he just saw the white movement on the top, and that's what pulled him up. But it's an area that mountain lion really likes to be in a lot, and Fletcher was going along there. So I had called Fish and Game, and they're like, I never even got a call back on it, And then here in the city, one mountain lion, we got to shut down, 3/4 of the city because we saw a mountain lion. I'm like, oh, guys, get a grip,
I've made several calls, and not to bash California Fish and Wildlife. They're not Fish and Game anymore. They call themselves Fish and Wildlife,
right.
But they've never returned a single call for poaching. When I'm out there hiking and teaching classes and there's guys hunting out of season, I immediately call. I've never gotten a single call back from those knuckleheads. And here I train, the head instructors for California Fish and Wildlife, and I would complain to them too. I said, you guys don't ever call me back. This guy's poaching. What else is more important than that?
Right. Yeah, they're doing it big time. The Vietnamese go up into squirrel season up country, and then they're taking out bears with their squirrel license, and then they just cut the gallbladder out of the bear and ship it out, for the money. And it's really horrible.
Sure.
So they have been up there like SWAT teams. You go up there to go camping and you're just shooting. They're like, what are you guys doing out here? We're just enjoying the wildlife, sir. But that's why they're up there, is because we've had a huge problem with the Vietnamese poaching bears up there. So, yeah.
Well, until they get, that gallbladder is worth $4,000 or $5,000.
Right.
And
exactly.
Until they get a grip on, that black market, people are going to do, people are desperate.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it's so crazy too. Just like one little bear gallbladder. I mean, all right. So
sure.
what about a mountain lion or a large cat? Because that's kind of my worst fear, is that I'd be walking along one of my trails, turn the corner, and I'd spook up on a mountain lion. What would you suggest to do in that kind of situation?
Well, it goes back to our basic, list that
Yep.
we've already started, making noise. And,
Yeah.
Lions are by far the quietest animal out there. They're a very solitary creature, and, you're never going to see them. So I know several times, where they've come out there in California on the trails and they've chased the mountain bikers and, things like that. But you really have to make noise. Don't be alone.
Yeah, what scares me
one,
the most is with Christian, because I go the cubs from that one kill are down at Folsom Zoo, and you can walk up
mm-hmm.
as an adult and they don't pay you any mind, but as soon as like the little kid comes walking up, they're just like boom, they just like cue in on the little child, like,
Sure.
man, I don't know, if my kid was out on the trail, like, whoa, I just like yell at it, freak it out, or I carry my
Mace.
rifle. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta have mace. It's just it's such a simple insurance policy, for that $40 for that can of bear mace.
Yeah.
Any animal that gets within, if they're running, you need to shoot that at 60 feet and measure what 60 feet is. People kind of have issues of what distances are, and kind of just drill that, hey, there's 60 feet. An animal that's running at you, that's when the bear spray has to be shot in order to get to them at 30 feet. So, and we're talking seconds here, and
Right.
You've been in a lot of classes where if you're carrying bear mace or a firearm, if you don't have access to it within 2 seconds, then it's not a weapon. So that's your folder knife when you're in the city, okay, in your pocket. It has to be accessible. Your bear mace has to be on the outside. And I've known there was an old couple here 2 summers ago out in a little town called Pelican, and they just visited Glacier Bay. And a black bear from 100 yards away was running at them full speed through the creek over to them, and literally came right to them, and they were hitting it with walking sticks. And they each had a can of bear spray in the bottom of their backpack, and they couldn't get to it. And so that was from 100 yards away. This took, maybe 5 to 8 seconds, but it didn't matter.
Right.
You have to have, quick access to your bear spray and to your firearm. Otherwise, you're not carrying a weapon, in my opinion.
I've never actually discharged mine, and I think even the little tab at the top is still in it, and I've just never pulled it, So I guess I should get out there and just practice with it. I wonder how long the lifespan is on those things. Well, I don't even know when I bought it, I went to
there was a did you watch that Alaska show called The Alaska Experiment?
No, but I saw it on History Channel.
All right, so there's one of the contestants there in the first day. He's got his bear spray, and the clip fell off of it, and he went and he sat down and he hit that top trigger, and it exploded right into his face. And
That's
so
what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, so he's out of the contest in the first 5 or 6 hours because he shot himself.
That's what I'm afraid of. That's why I never pulled it out. I was like, well, I'll just leave it on my belt, and then if I ever needed to, I can pull it then. But I don't know, I don't want to be fumble fingers when the moment comes. And we all know how useful actual practice is to make sure that your muscle memory is there. So, yeah, I guess
I would work on drawing it, pull it out, pull that clip out. And put the clip back in, put it in the holster, pull it out, do that a couple times so you're familiar with that. And remember that bear mace is just a direct spray. If you're doing hand mace, for self-defense in a city, in close contact, remember that's a small figure 8 spray with your hand. If you draw a figure 8, that's the appropriate action for macing a human attack with the small handheld things, for joggers and ladies that have that canister in their purse.
Right.
But for bear mace is just a direct spray. Just point, because it spreads out into a 30-foot red cloud. And I'm still waiting for the new stuff to come out with these new super hot habanero, where they're 20 times stronger than the cayenne that they're using in bear spray.
Right. Yeah, and then what if the winds like backfire at you, like spray it, wind back at you? So you need to be aware of that too.
Absolutely. And just recently, I don't know whether you saw that over in Yellowstone. That was last month, where the family was out camping. The bear came in, grabbed their 10-year-old son, was chomping on him and throwing him all over the place. And the two parents both had mace. They ran into contact with that bear, literally 2 feet, and they were shooting it down its mouth and its face. And they shot it with two cans until it let go of that kid, and then it ran away. But
Wow.
you know that it worked. And
Yeah.
the problem that, when any of these predators, once they start the attack and they have a hold of something, at that point it's life and death, and you have got to, they're so focused on the attack, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to get them to unlock. But in that instance, a mom and a dad with two cans of bear spray in contact with, I don't know whether that was a brown or a black bear there in Yellowstone. We had the 10-year-old boy, but that was just last month. But it worked, and the child lived. He's in the hospital.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
So it's definitely worth having that product and being familiar with it.
That's a bare minimum. Yeah, that's a bare minimum. You have to have it.
And I mean, really, like you say, it could work against any animal. So just carry it all the time, and then you're all set.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And for all of the environmentalist and PETA people, it's a non-harmful way to handle that. It's not a firearm, okay? You're not going to kill it, but I think that you're responsible. You have a right to defend yourself, and the mace is actually more effective than a firearm from what we're seeing in statistics up here in Alaska on bears. And the mace is about 92% effective, and a firearm is about 75%, because you have such a limited time to shoot. And if you don't hit the bear with your firearm, then you're screwed. But the mace is guaranteed that they're going through the mace.
Yeah, and you could just piss them off too, more with the bullet. So
sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have something that penetrates, a bear, you're looking at a 1-inch, solid bone plate on the top of their head.
Yeah.
So
right.
It takes a pretty good sized firearm to penetrate that.
Well, Doug, I wanted to mention one side note caveat, because you're the one who taught me my evacuation routines and skills and stuff like that. So we had a couple of instances now within our family where we've been on the ready for evacuation, and the first time that we ever did it, it was like a 10-minute time, right? I'm timing us as we go, and it was about 10 minutes. So this last year, we had an evacuation. Brock was actually hurt, and he sent me down the hill to go see the fire. So I wasn't even here, like on the ready at the house. My son, Fletcher, you remember Fletcher? He had us packed, ready to go by the time I got home within 5 minutes.
Awesome.
I was like, boy, you are awesome. The only thing he did wrong was he put my ammo can on top of my my shotgun stock. And I was like, don't ever do that again. But yeah, he had us all ready to go, everything packed, loaded. Boop, we could have left within 5 minutes. Family of 4 and 2 dogs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how close did the fire get to your house?
It was down the hill. So if it would have hit the brush line, it could have been up on us in a matter of 3 minutes, 4 minutes, right? So, but luckily we have a guy he has a paving company, and he had water tenders and then also his big rigs. So he just surrounded the fires with his trucks and then sprayed it. We had it put out before the fire department even got here. So, yay neighbors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was just thinking about, one other thing on the animals is that oftentimes out hiking, especially in California, and other parts of the country where it's really rocky, a lot of granite, and these lone areas of these beautiful trees and bush and shade, and we're drawn to those because it's hot outside after hiking for hours on the rocky surface. And you got to realize too that the animals think the same way. So there could be in that small area that's maybe 50 feet around with 3 or 4 trees and some brush and shade in there. You got to think that, there could be a bear and a mountain lion and a wolf are going to be in that shade also. So you got to be very careful when you're walking from open areas into these little bitty islands of paradise, to try and get shade for just a quick lunch or a rest. The wild animals are going to be doing the same thing.
That's absolutely true. We went out to the area where we did the rappelling when we were out there practicing it, and it's just little shade trees over at the end, and we found a deer kill right there from a mountain lion. And I was like, we better go the other way now, guys, because it could come back for that thing anytime. So.
Did I ever tell you when I went over the side of a cliff, I was doing an exercise and I rappelled down to the first ledge in front of a mountain lion cave?
Oh, no.
Okay. So Dummy Doug, I've got this special forces group. I'm in the high Sierras, and it's the only time I ever take off my leg rig. I always have my pistol with me, but I'm teaching this class, of course, that the one time I don't have my leg rig on me, and I take it off. I'm going to go over and I'm going to set the rope down. And so I make this first 30-foot hop. I'm looking really cool, man. I want all these Marines to look at me go over this mountain. Ooh, ah.
Right.
And I land on this beautiful ledge, and there's 2 dead skulls and deer parts everywhere, and there's a cave in front of me. And the first thing I said, this is a mountain lion. And so I immediately just popped off again and went down to the next ledge. But it just was such a beautiful place for a lion to overlook the entire valley of Bridgeport, California. It was a gorgeous area.
Yeah, that's like coming up.
I always remember that panic.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, just during that 1 second, I went, oh crap, and my hand went down to my leg, and there was nothing there, and I just went, whoa, jump, keep going.
Of course, the best laid plans.
But I ended up there, that he wasn't home at the time, and I ended up, moving my rope lines about 30, 40 feet down, so we didn't have to face that situation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like that, what if he was there just like that? Again, I come in and I surprise him. It could have been an interesting situation.
When you mentioned the climbing up the cliff, I've done that. One of my dogs actually ran up ahead of me, and he was like barking at me, like didn't want me to come up kind of thing. And I'm like, what are you doing, you stupid dog? And then I get up there and here's this huge rattlesnake skin and rattlesnake cave and everything. I'm like, okay, dog was right. We're out of here. We're not staying here. Yeah. Oh.
Well, and another thing we didn't really touch on was, spiders. Everybody has, or many people have, arachnophobia.
Yep.
The tarantula. I love tarantula. I had a pet tarantula when I was a boy, and he was a big old Mexican orange. And he could crawl all over the place, and he would never bite you. But the other 2 are dangerous, and that would be, the black widow and the brown recluse.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, just going into areas and not seeing where your hands are. Obviously those thick spider webs are a good clue, but I don't know, I don't know what we can say and can't say, but the number one cause of injury, for a man is going into an outhouse in the remote areas, and they build the spider web across the toilet seat. And so here as men, we're kind of hanging down, our unit is hanging there. So this is a statistic. This is the largest statistics, of black widow bites are on a man's penis.
Oh, and gosh. Oh, ouch.
Yeah, ouch. Okay.
Yeah, that's not going to be nice at all.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's a girl.
The other subject would be, for ladies, which people don't want to talk about, is their menstrual cycle. That you have to take that into account in wild areas. Yep. I certainly would never let, any woman scuba dive with me, in a menstrual cycle, which is obvious because of sharks.
Yep.
And I certainly want to know when I was guiding, I always ask specifically in remote areas if any of the ladies in camp, were having their menstrual cycle at that time, because I want to know about that. And, things have to be buried and disposed of. Because it is blood, and animals can smell that from half a mile away.
Yeah, and the hiker that was killed out here, she was on her menstrual cycle, hiking or jogging. Yep, she was.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep. And so I tend to, I know when I am on mine, I'm like, okay, I got to be even more aware of the lions and stuff around us, because that was a female lion who had babies too. And now you're a female who's basically in heat in her territory,
Sure.
So not intelligent move there.
Yeah, and you'll remember this, and your listeners may not know this, but I'll tell them a personal story about Sara Hathaway. And we were doing it was a quick class. You'll remember this real quick. 7 or 8 of you showed up to do a rain class. It was dumping rain on this Saturday, and I knew that it would be a miserable condition. So I made up a quick class, and we went out and we built shelter and fire in pouring rain conditions. Now, so Sara was talking a lot, as she normally does, and you know, and a gold miner came out of the camp, and my partner Brian and I confronted him, and because he heard a woman's voice, and he had not seen a woman in about 4 or 5 months because he was out gold panning, and he was very aggressive about getting into the party and finding and seeing a woman. And you'll remember that we were all in ponchos.
Yep,
and he couldn't tell because we were all in big ponchos.
Yep.
So, but you remember that here he was, a 2-legged predator. And if we had not been there, and because he heard a woman's voice, he was desperate to find you.
Yeah, he was.
And the fact that he was confronted by 2 big males, Brian and I, with sidearms, he finally went away.
Persisted, yeah, but he was still pretty persistent. Yeah. It was a spooky moment. I was like, okay, that's not cool. Note to self, don't talk so loud.
Yeah, and just like that, it could have been a bad situation for a female hiker out in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. And then you're trying to make noise and stuff to keep predators away, but you could be attracting the 2-legged predators.
Yeah, and again, a bear mace would have taken care of that situation. That would have knocked him just flat down.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. All right, get out of here. All right, Doug, well, we got to wrap it up. Our hour is just about over. So you still got any programs online or anything you want to share with the listeners?
Well, yeah, we still offer our online programming. The Sierra Survival School. It's a 12-month program, and it's a monthly, there's no long-term contract. So it's an outstanding, just information. There's so much information on that. Sometimes just overwhelming for the average person. But, we encourage you to go there and join up and get some valuable information.
Yeah, get your notebooks out because it's just packed full of information. So why don't you go ahead and give the website there one more time, and I'll make sure that I share it with all my listeners as well.
Yeah, sierrasurvival.com.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Sara. Appreciate it, and always good to chat with you.
All right, Doug, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us. Hopefully I can get you to bite on a few more topics in the future, and we can do it all over again, because every time that I get to talk with you, I just really value the knowledge that you can impart into my brain. And I love just learning so I can go turn around and teach it to future generations and help them be prepared for whatever is heading our way. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us. I also want to thank my Patreon contributors. You guys are what makes the show go on. Please head on over to www.patreon.com/changingearth and become a Patreon subscriber. It really, really helps. And you can do it for as little as $3 a month. I have all kinds of bonus goodies that I'm always trying to include in my Patreon members page on my website, so that you guys will always have access to new content and new goodies that I'm producing. Just to show you how much I really value your support of my efforts to educate the masses on why it's important to be prepared for whatever's coming down our pipeline, whether that be a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, or a personal disaster. I also want to take a moment to thank all of you for listening to the show today. I hope that it was jam-packed full of great information that you can put into use in your daily life. Until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, Battle for the South, and Dark Days in Denver at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.